Today I've got some new Swaybar end links. These are aftermarket, but they're OEM style, non-greasable. And they seem to be pretty good quality. 33 bucks on Amazon for these. Come with new bushings, new nuts. This is a 3/4 nut right here, which is nice that they downsized a little bit. The stock ones, this is a 13/16. So if you come in here, and so here's our Swaybar. Let me get a light on for you. Okay. The top two black bushings kind of squished down there. That bolt on top is a 15mm, and then the one down here is a 13/16, which is commonly used on the suspension. In fact, I think the bottom bolt on the shock is a 13/16. It's actually the largest socket I have in my socket set, so I'm glad I had one big enough for it. So this would be an interesting job. Pretty much you just unbolt these two nuts and hammer out the old Swaybar and then replace it with the new one. Now we'll just have to see how easy or hard that is. These are the original Swaybar end links for sure. Definitely the Mopar style. So these are 11 years old. They have 248,000 miles on them. So I think it's time for them to be swapped out. Okay, I have you set up on the ground here. This is one of the more challenging camera angles I've had to come up with. You can see the wrench here with the 15mm socket on top. This is the one, the nut that I'm going to loosen first. Let's see how loose it is or not. Oh, okay, not bad at all. I'm now going to take this one all the way off. The nuts are sort of like a lock nut, so there's some resistance. They won't be able to unspin themselves due to vibration or anything like that. And so just gotta bear with me as I crank on this thing. You'll get there. Well, it's actually got some heat to it. That's funny. There's a lot of friction trying to remove this. Maybe a little PB blaster, but since it is unbolting itself and the shock, the Swaybar is not spinning in place, that's one thing you got to worry about. Will either of these spin in place? It's possible, but I'm not seeing that right now, so it's good news so far. That will also go for when you install, so okay. So the old bolt is out. Now I'm going to come over, swap out for the 13/16. Would have been easier to do this before I put the larger tires on, but okay, so this one's on pretty tight. Before I go and grab the PB, I'm just going to take socket extension and a big deep socket and extend this a bit further. Yes, and now it's coming. So this one, okay. It looks like the whole Swaybar inside here is actually spinning in this case. So I'm going to have to come up with something to clamp down on that. Okay, we're back up and running here. I've got a set of locking pliers there, and they're resting up against the shock coils, the springs. And now, well, I had it going there for a minute. This is one option. I also have a nut splitter, and I may just split the whole nut off because they've sent us replacement nuts. So I'd rather it just spin off by itself, but we'll get this thing. Okay, my friends, what I've discovered here is that you can fit a 10mm socket on the very end. It's got a hex end to it, and this is a ratcheting wrench, 13/16. So I'm going to put a regular ratchet in here and basically crank them opposite directions of one another until it comes all the way off. So it's going to be a challenge, and I may have to figure something else out here, give me more leverage, but this is possibly going to be the easiest way. Well, I guess I could use the tie rod end as leverage. That seems to be fine. This may be the way to do it. So I'm actually more or less tightening the 10mm, turning it to the right clockwise, and it is coming loose. I'm just going to crank on this for a little while. You know, it's supposed to be an easy job, but things like this come up. Now, one thing I'd like y'all to see is the new one. The new one actually has like a little nut here that you can grip onto, and it's four-sided. So when these new ones get replaced, there is no hex end on this end. You would grip it here on this nut and then untorque it that way. Okay, so that all worked out. Both nuts are off now. Now I'm going to attempt to remove it, and well, it looks like the easiest way is to pull this side out, and maybe the hammer will be needed to coerce this thing. We're going to need to remove the bushing and the these washer things that are on it, from the top at least. So they're off. Oh, that was easy. So some of you may need to use a hammer, and to be honest with you, this doesn't seem to be completely blown. It's not seized. It seems to smoothly move around. It's slightly stiff, but if you take the new one, I can't even move that by hand. So these are going to be solid. Now, let me grab a couple things on the new one. I hope you can see here. We're going to add one little metal washer thing. We're going to add one bushing, which sits right in it, and then you got the pointy side pointing up, and then we're going to go and put it in here. Now the next challenging part is, you know, get that in there, and so what I may have to do is go get my jack and jack up the Swaybar, because okay, so you can see, maybe you can, bottom right corner of your screen is the jack, and I've got a block of wood, and I'm just trying to move this Swaybar up about 1/2 inch. There we go. Oh yeah, okay. It really, the jack was not stressed by this at all. And I don't think the Swaybar is either. So you still slide this in. Oh man. We may have to elevate it another about 1/4 inch. I hope that's enough, because now the Swaybar is starting to get at an angle. Oh, okay, we can move that by hand a little bit. You want to get the end link in as far as you can. before you let any pressure off that jack. And I do believe that's all, because there is that spacer on the inside. So what I'm going to do actually is just grab that 3/4 nut that they sent and hand tighten that on until it reaches that lock nut part. And then we'll let the pressure off the jack before we install the other bushing and washer. So there we go. In case we need that again, it'll be like that. Now let me grab the other parts. And the nut on top is also, this is more of a regular lock nut. So we're taking another bushing here, pointy side, pointing down. And then we're taking the silver one that fits on top. And then another nut. This may be another 15 millimeter, I'm not sure. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tighten the bottom nut here into place. And what I'll probably have to do is use a crescent wrench. Okay, I've got some torque on them. Here's the bushings. You can see they're just starting to bulge outside of these the washers. So that's all the further I tightened them. We'll drive the truck and see if they need to be adjusted at all. But that's really all I foresee right now. There's a look at our lower part. Overall, let's move on to the other side. If I don't find anything, we'll skip right up to the test drive. Okay, so here's our final update. Before I even do the test drive, I tighten these down a little bit more. They got a little more bulge to them now. And to have a look at the other side went in very smooth, probably less than half the time, probably because I already learned all my lessons about the first side. And yeah, this one went very easily. So let me see, old parts. Main thing that was worn on the old ones was the bushings. The whole top part with the bushings was not on very tight at all. The Swaybar end link themselves was still good enough to use. So we'll get out on the test drive and see if it made any difference putting those on. Okay, it's test drive time. Right. So, what am I comparing to? This truck has always had a little bit of a notchy, clunky feel in the steering. And I've replaced most of the front end. The shocks were the first thing I replaced. Then it was ball joints and wheel bearing hub assemblies. Now it's the Swaybar end links. Each time I've done something got better. The handling got better, the slop got better, especially in the suspension front. But the steering, that part of it never changed. So I knew something else needed some work. Let's find out if it was the Swaybars. Swaybar ends. Okay. We're going to go through a series of stop signs and a bunch of turns. Make a right turn here. Beautiful weather for May, too. That does feel better. So that was a good right turn. I'm just going to kind of swerve around the road here. It does seem a little bit better. Let's get up here. We'll eventually do a left turn. And that'll help me figure out if we really did make an impact or not. Another right turn here. It's fine on the right turn. I am seeing an improvement. There may need to be a little bit of adjustment to the bushings, maybe a hair tighter or looser, one or the other. Probably just one little turn tighter. But they are pretty tight. They're a lot tighter than the old ones were. Coming up here on a left turn. Sorry to make you all wait on this straightaway, but I'm getting down there. Roads are actually flooding right now. Tides are up pretty high. Yeah, left turn, nothing wrong with it. Say that was probably the culprit, because the steering's not loose at all or anything. It just had that clunkiness before that we don't have anymore. So I think that's where I'm going to end the video. I'm pretty happy with how the steering wheel's feeling right now. So, problem solved. Hopefully, y'all enjoyed the instructional segment and the commentary. I'll see y'all in the next video.